Hi everyone, welcome back to another episode on the Cerebral Cricketer podcast. Today we're a very, very special guest on the show. We have Joel Curtis, who's a left-handed wicketkeeper batsman from Western Australia. He made his first class debut in November 2023. He's also represented WA in List A cricket and has played for Perth Scorchers in the Big Bash. So thank you for coming on the show, Joel.
Cheers. Thanks for having me.
I know this show, we always interview different cricketers from around the globe to get insights about, what makes them tick, the mental side of the game, the strategic side of the game. But it's always good to kind of get an idea about, what made you get into cricket from a young age. So what made you interested in cricket? How did you get into cricket?
Yeah, I think it was sort of similar for most Australians growing up, just having cricket and footy on the TV. And yeah, I have an older brother who's 5 years older than me. So he was heavily into cricket as well. So from early as I can remember, always was just playing cricket in the backyard. And I think it just stemmed from there and just, yeah, enjoying that in the Australian summer.
And in terms of, having a sibling, we know that, it can be very competitive, playing different sports, trying to beat each other, trying to one up each other. So was that always the case growing up? And do you feel like that might have instilled that competitive spirit within you from a nurture perspective, or is the competitiveness always within you from a nature perspective, like since a young age?
Yeah, I think I must have always just been a competitive kid. Um, and yeah, I think having an elder brother that probably, yeah, was challenging me, I think that probably would have brought out more of it as well. Um, but yeah, I think, yeah, having an older brother definitely helped, shape me, I guess, into the person that I am today and the cricketer. I guess having that sort of role model, someone to, I guess, always look to try and beat and be better than. I think from a young age that was definitely always the case. Yeah, would have a lot of, I guess, fierce backyard battles. Or cricket or footy, whatever it was always pretty competitive, and versing some or like playing someone that's older than you, it was always challenging me. So I think that definitely would have helped me become, I guess, a lot better, um, for sure.
Sometimes, as kids, when they're playing someone a lot older than them, they sort of have a defeatist mindset. So, did you always believe that you can defeat your brother despite him being older than you?
Yeah, I don't think when you're a kid or when I was a kid, I never really had any self-doubt. Oh, I don't remember having any self-doubt about that. It was always just like, straight after school, let's go out and play. um, you know, as fun and it was at the time it was just fun. Like I never had that sort of I don't want to verse you because you're gonna be better than me. It was probably a little bit lenient on me at times, but yeah, it was always, trying to beat him for sure.
And so, in terms of, you're a batsman yourself, a wicketkeeper batsman, were you always a keeper batsman growing up, or did you also bowl and do a bit of everything?
Yeah, always was in, I guess in junior cricket, you're always doing everything. I remember like I wasn't a wicket keeper all the time. Like I'd always bowl as well. I think, I was bowling in district cricket and, under 13s, 14s. I don't think under 15s, but yeah, wicket keeping was always a joy as well. Being involved was a lot funner than fielding, I found. But yeah, it was always just trying to be involved as much as I can.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a keeper myself for the club that I play for, and it's the thing like people don't realize because most people aren't keepers anyway. Is that you're so involved in the game, and you can always feel like you can influence the bats in a certain way that can help the bowler in a way that you can't when you're a fielder. So I think keeping always keeps you in the game, and keeps you on your toes, and it sort of complements your batting. I would suspect as well, right? Because you're trying to watch the ball as closely as possible. You're trying to read the length early as possible so you can move to wherever the ball ends up going. And that's similar to obviously as a batsman, they need to pick up the ball earlier, watch the ball really closely out of the bowler's hand. Do you always find that from a younger age that, your keeping and batting go hand in hand?
Uh, I probably only sort of, found the benefits of that as I've sort of started more opening the batting and probably, yeah, as I got into senior cricket, with one day cricket especially, you know, bowling first, keeping, I'm finding that, going out and opening the batting, it feels like you've already got your eye in, I think, in many ways. So yeah, definitely finding that it's, yeah, definitely a benefit of wicket keeping for sure.
In terms of particular coaches from a younger age, did you have a coach that helped you build the fundamentals of a game when it comes to batting or even keeping as well?
Um, Not really not until I was sort of, I think 15, 16. Like, I think a lot of it was just sort of, I obviously had some natural talent, like I look back at photos when I was a kid and like the way I was holding the bat was, pretty correct. And I don't remember anyone telling me how to hold the bat. So, it could have been just like watching it on TV and then that's just what you do. Watching my brother, I don't remember anyone sort of telling me how to do things. But yeah, I think so. I sort of just figured things out on my own. I think a lot of the time and up until I was sort of, I think until I was 16, when I started working with Tom Scollay from Cricket Mentoring, he's well known. Um, he was sort of the first, real technical coach that I sort of had, batting wise. Um, yeah, other than just like fundamental stuff in club cricket. But I don't know if that was I wish I probably had someone more of a technical coach growing up because that probably would have helped shape things a lot quicker. But it also could have been, advantage as well, just figuring out things on your own as a kid and just sort of finding what works for you. Um, but yeah, I'd probably say not until I was sort of 16, I would say.
That's really interesting. So, when it comes to figuring things out, I'd like to kind of delve a bit more into that. So, was there a specific player you would be watching on TV that you're like, I'm going to try to copy him? Or did you kind of trial and error where maybe you play a certain game and be like, oh, this doesn't feel right. I'm going to try this thing? Or like, did you just sort of develop, oh, someone on TV does this sort of trigger movement? I sort of follow that. Like, how did that process look like trying to figure it out on your own from a young age?
Yeah, it's pretty interesting actually. The only thing that comes to my mind is, yeah, probably watching people on TV, but probably just backyard cricket. Like, I think one of the first houses we lived in, the way our backyard was set up was, you got rewarded for runs, or to my, as a left-hander, to my left side, to my leg side. So I think that naturally would have just helped my leg side game, and playing to the leg side. And then, the second house we lived in when I was sort of 10 years old and older than that, it rewarded runs hitting straight down the ground. So maybe I naturally started learning how to hit straighter down the ground from that. Um, and then I think it was just, in the nets and just figuring it out. Most left-handers, I guess, are more dominant on their leg side, especially growing up with that being your strongest shot. So I think I wasn't the biggest kid growing up. So I think a lot of my runs were sort of, nudging them around and then sort of a pull shot or a flick shot onto the leg side. I think that's where I scored most of my runs.
Yeah, that's really interesting because I can relate to that, and it's something I think about as well. Like I think a lot of cricketers in different interviews have talked about that. Like, the way that their backyard was set up has shaped the way that they play certain shots. So I know for myself, like I love hitting down the ground, like and when I was growing up in my backyard, how my backyard is set up is that you can't really hit shots on the leg side because it's there's a wall right there, so you kind of have to hit down down the down the ground or towards I guess the neighbor's fence, and that's actually how I play right now. And I know a lot of players. I remember Ben Cutting in a different interview mentioned a similar thing as well. So it's sort of people take it for granted, like the nature of I guess how backyards are set up might shape a player's best shots, for example, because that's where they see the scoring zones. So I think something to factor in as well. And you mentioned about Tom Scholar, so he's pretty big on Instagram accounts I've seen on cricket mentoring as well. So what kind of impact has he had on your cricket when it comes to, I know like he's really big on the mental side of the game. He does a lot of programs around that as well. But I think you also mentioned that he had a big role when it comes to the technical side as well.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Yeah, like I said, I started working with him when I was about 16, and I think, yeah, he just really helped me, develop those technical fundamentals that you need in, grade cricket and even first class cricket as well. And um, yeah, so I think, and I kind of just teach you how to train as well, really. Like, you need to hit thousands of balls, and um, he sort of helped shaped I guess that as well, and also introduced me to the mental side of the game, which is, yeah, one of the biggest aspects in a lot of cricketers, or any athletes, is that mental side of the game. And I think developing that side of my game alongside the technical and tactical sides that I need to develop, from a junior, yeah, it really helps for sure.
And when it comes to the technical side, if you were to coach a young cricketer like in a similar age where you went to Tom Scholar from Cricket Mentoring, what sort of technical aspect would you fixate on or advise a young batsman to focus on?
Yeah, I think I've done quite a bit of coaching myself, and you see, I think with a lot of younger kids, it's yeah, they're all going to have their own individual ways of technique, and but I think if their fundamentals are good, like their bat path's coming down straight, you know, they're making contact late with the ball, they're in a balanced position when they make contact with the ball, they're getting in a good position to cut and pull, to drive. So yeah, I think it's, yeah, making sure their bat's coming through straight, and making sure that they're balanced when they make contact, and probably another a big thing as well is, yeah, making sure that their head's in a good position too. So sort of, yeah, probably just those fundamentals.
You mentioned regarding playing late. We hear that all the time, and the rationale being that if you play late, then because if you play with hard hands, you're more likely to edge, and it's going to fly to the slip, for example. Or when you play late, it's like more efficient with the way the bowler is bowling. If the bowler is bowling quick, and you're playing late, you're just sort of using the pace of the ball, as opposed to trying to generate so much power for every shot, which probably is less efficient. So what reason, I guess, or other reasons that batsmen should learn how to play late, especially in the climate of T20 cricket, where people will be like, look, to hit those big sixes, you have to play with harder hands and look to hit it through cow corner, or play those big shots down the ground. And how can you do that if you're having to play late, for example, which might be counterintuitive?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of things out of your control as batters, and I think if you can play the ball as late as you can, um, you can pick up as much information as you can, from the ball coming, and the closer the ball is to your eyes. I think I saw something about Justin Langer talking about it on commentary recently, where he's talking about sniffing the ball. So like that's a great way of looking at it. Like the closer the ball is to under your eyes, the better you're going to be able to hit the middle of your bat. Um, and if that ball does nip or if it's swinging, the better you can adjust to that as well. Um, yeah, I think there's certain stats where, if you're playing out in front, compared to like under your eyes, how much more likely you are to nick a ball or something I've seen before. But yeah, obviously in T20 cricket, it's a lot different where you need to get elevation and to be able to hit sixes. So you're obviously going to have to make contact with that ball a lot earlier. But then it also doesn't matter if you nick it because it's probably going to go for six anyway. So yeah, it's quite different.
Yeah, that definitely makes sense, and I think the information you shared regarding sniffing the ball and having taking in as much as information as possible if you play late means that you've had more time to make the better decision when it comes to playing the right shot. And so, especially in the speaking on the climate of T20 cricket, sometimes that technical aspect might get put to the side because having a strong foundation or strong base or strong defense might not be emphasized as much. So would you say yourself as well, being aggressive batsman as well, how important is having a defense in this day and age when it comes to playing the big shots in T20 cricket?
Yeah, I think, you see, uh, T20 cricket, there's still the swinging ball, there's still the ball that nips. So I think you still need those fundamentals of a good defense, especially if you're opening the batting, to be able to face, the best bowlers in the world. Um, and I guess I'm still figuring out a lot of this myself, but I think the guys up the top, you're able to, well, from my experience in one day cricket as well, you're able to just play good cricket shots. Especially with those two people out. So I think the fundamentals of batting doesn't need to change too much there. Um, I think it's yeah, different story when you're sort of trying to hit sixes and stuff, but yeah, I think the fundamentals are yeah, very important in T20 cricket as well.
Yeah, no, that definitely makes sense. And when it comes to having this, the right fundamentals for all three formats, and kind of trusting a game in that sense as well. And speaking of which, I wanted to actually jump to when it comes to season 2022 to 2023, where I know we're talking about T20 cricket and all that, but you had an opportunity to play in England as well. So I'm curious, like that experience must have shaped your cricket and the way you play. So, according to my research as well, and this is on of Cricket Mentoring's Facebook page, you broke the record for most runs in the Middlesex County Cricket League, scoring 1,242 runs at an average of 82.8, which is a whopping average there, with 6 centuries for Crouch End Cricket Club. And he also played for Worcestershire second 11 and Middlesex second 11 teams as well. So because we here in Western Australia, the pitches are bouncy and quick, all that kind of stuff, and many paces that come from there. I'm sure you're used to that pace, and then now you're playing in England and accustomed or acclimatizing yourself to those conditions as well. So what's been your experience? Because I can suspect that people talk about Duke's ball swinging conditions, England overcast, etc. How was that experience? Did you find it a big shift when it comes to maybe testing your technique and making those adjustments? I mean, clearly you've had success there, but I'm also curious about your journey when it comes to playing in Western Australia and the pitches there versus playing in England and adapting there.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. I think yeah, that was the second year I went to the UK. I went when I was 19, which must have been 2019, I think. And then the second time I went was that 2022 year, I think. So yeah, the first year, like it was, yeah, I guess a big challenge, like you're young, you're living away from home, you're meeting people you've never met before. You're, I guess, essentially you're a semi-professional, so and you know the overseas of a club, so like you're expected to do well. So I think that element of pressure, I think, makes you grow as a cricketer in itself, and it's helped me a lot as well. Um, and then, yeah, I think going to the UK um, has always really helped me sort of just develop my game and expand my game, because I just found like I was away from sort of, of, I guess, what your reputation is here in your own state, um, of how you play cricket. So I always found I sort of expanded my game a lot, just sort of playing with a bit more freedom. But yeah, that second year in the UK, just found, yeah, some really good consistency. And it was probably just, years of hard work sort of coming together. And yeah, I think, I was playing in Middlesex League, which I found, they're pretty flat wickets, to be fair. The Duke ball obviously does a little bit, but it also stays hard for 50 overs in a 1 day game. So, you get value for your shots because the ball's hard and, small boundaries. So you don't actually have to do too much to score runs quite easily there. But yeah, for my game, it was really beneficial. You verse a lot of spinners. So for my spin play, I think where you don't face much spin in, I guess, Australia, or more so WA. Um, so yeah, I think for playing against spin and spinning conditions, it was very beneficial. Um, but yeah, probably the biggest thing was just, yeah, sort of expanding my game and sort of, testing the boundaries a little bit in that sense. If you
No,
want,
definitely.
if
No, I appreciate those insights as well. And I might,
so, I was just
yeah.
going to say,
Sorry.
if you, I probably missed a few of your questions there, but if you need me to go on any more depth and some, let me know.
Okay, yeah, no, no worries. I mean, I don't know if you had any sort of extra thoughts. Sorry, I think it was a bit choppy, but the video. But if there's anything else, you had any final thoughts regarding your time in England?
Um, yeah, I think I touched on most of it. But I think it's just another, rather than another chance to play more cricket. You're playing 2 to potentially 3 games a week. So on top of, grade cricket in Perth, like you might only play 15 or so games a year. If you can, double that, um, like I think you're going to fast track your cricket massively. Like I think, I did maybe 7 seasons, back to back, from the age of 19. So I think that just helps fast track your cricket for sure. Just playing more cricket and getting more experience.
No, that definitely makes sense, and that's something I've actually heard. I think it was even Shane Warne. I remember seeing an interview, and he talked about his time in England. He said that I think in England it's like you keep playing more consistently over a period of time as in comparison to Australia, and that's why if you get that volume in, then obviously you get more chance to try different things and practice more and all that kind of stuff as well. So, do you think that's something that maybe in the Australian context we lack compared to maybe in England where they're playing so much cricket as opposed to Australia? Maybe we don't play as much here.
Yeah, for sure. Like even from, you look at their junior setup, they're even from like, the age of 10 or whatever, they're playing a lot more cricket um, compared to what we do. And yeah, and even looking at their grade cricket, like there's so much opportunity to play more cricket on weekends and even midweek as well. So even for young guys, yeah, making their way, like it's very beneficial for sure.
Yeah, it definitely makes sense. And I might actually jump to because we're on the topic of pitches, climatizing. You talked about your experiences in England. There was a period in season 2023 to 2024 where you were actually averaging in grade cricket. I think it's over. I mean, on play cricket it was 52.04, but I'm pretty sure it was higher when you just isolate grade cricket stats, and that actually helped you to make your Sheffield Shield debut. And you actually played a few second 11 matches before and doing well, which landed helped you land that Sheffield Shield debut. So I was just curious, like when you're playing that, you've done your performances in grade cricket. Now you have an opportunity in second 11, and this is just my personal experience when I observe players. Like I can imagine like how much pressure there is because it's like you get this one opportunity, you want to make the most of it to make that give yourself the best chance to play for your state, right? So like in those situations it might players might find a lot of pressure because you don't know in second 11 suddenly you might not be playing the next game. So how did you find yourself when you were in that position playing that second 11 game, taking in that pressure, or how did you manage it at that time where you knew that, okay, if I do well here now, then I might get opportunity to play for Western Australia?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it can be challenge or it is challenging. I think for me it was, you never realize how close you are to the next level from club cricket, and it happened, yeah, really fast for me. Like that year I didn't think I was, going to play a game for WA, and yeah, I was obviously around the second 11 team, playing as a wicketkeeper-batter, and yeah, it happened really fast. Like one of the batters was away with the Shield team, so and he was flying back for the game and wasn't back in time, so I ended up opening the batting for this one second 11 game against ACT, and like it was just uh, saw it as an opportunity rather than as a chance to, what happens if I fail or something like that. Um, so yeah, just saw it as an opportunity, and I ended up getting 100, maybe 115 or something that game, and off the back of what I was doing in club cricket, yeah, that sort of opened the door for me to, play that game for WA, and so before you know it, if the timing's right and things can open up for you pretty quickly, and so yeah, I wasn't prepared enough for that quick of change, but it was I just saw the opportunities, and yeah, they were great experiences as it happened.
Those are amazing insights, especially what you mentioned about seeing an opportunity rather than falling, putting yourself under pressure. Where I think it mirrors similar what you said when you were in England, where if you're overseas player, there's a lot more expectations. So I'm sure from mental perspective, there's a lot of burden there you have to kind of deal with, and then similarly in a situation where in the second 11 team and you're expected to or you have this you have this opportunity to do well, but then you don't want to put too much pressure on yourself. So what other advice would you have when it comes to I mean, a lot of players, all different kinds of levels, it could be them trying to, they know that they have this one opportunity to do well, and if they do, they can change their trajectory of playing cricket essentially. So what advice would you have for players? I know you said seeing an opportunity. Was there anything else you'd advise kids, or just any level cricketer when it comes to handling those moments?
Yeah, I think like you've done obviously things right to get selected in that team, or um, people obviously see potential in you. You've obviously got the runs on the board or the wickets um, to get picked. So I think the best thing you can do and is just trust what you've already done. Like whatever you do in club cricket or whatever you do in school cricket or whatever it is to get to that point of getting selected in the team. Like you've just got to have full trust in that when you're preparing and going out there, because I guess that's all you have to go off, and no doubt it's good enough to perform at the next level. And yeah, if you trust that and not, I guess, think you have to do anything different to be able to um, be at that next level, like yeah, I think it's just trusting what you're already doing.
No, those are great advice, definitely. And so after your second 11, which you did well in, especially you mentioned you scored 100 in the second 11 game that you opened, that helped you to make your Sheffield Shield debut that season. And you versed Queensland against the likes of Renshaw, Joe Burns, Marnus Labuschagne, Khawaja as well. So when you got that call up, what were the emotions like? How did you feel? And how did you manage that situation? Did you feel pressure as well? Or did you try to, as you said, like, see it as an opportunity and didn't feel the pressure as much? And obviously, I'm sure maybe in the past you wouldn't have played against such quality players. So how was that adjustment like? Did you feel like it was a big step up from the level you're playing at, or did you feel you were ready to give it your best in that? When you did make your Sheffield Shield debut.
Yeah, it was obviously, yeah, very exciting. I guess that's what you work towards, like all the work you put in, to, I guess, to get that reward. It's probably something, you look back at the end of your career or whatever and realize I guess, the excitement of it more. But yeah, it was very exciting for me and my family, and I think, yeah, I was obviously very excited, but probably overwhelmed at the same stage. Um, you know, Playing with guys that you sort of look up to, and can be overwhelming. But yeah, it was very exciting to get out there and play at the. It was at the Gabba, and just the whole everything around it. As a professional cricketer, is just, yeah, it's not real life. For a lot of people. So it was, yeah, very, very cool to sort of fly. Like I hadn't really been in sort of much professional setups until that point. Like I didn't really play any state underage stuff, so just to bar a few second 11 games. So to sort of just be put into sort of that professional setup, it was very, I guess, eye opening to um, how cool it can be. Um, and yeah, no, it was just obviously, I think we bowled first, and so I was able to keep first, and obviously was quite nervous and had a lot of self doubts and all that, all those sort of normal thoughts that can go through your head. Um, and yeah, when I got the chance to have a bat, I wasn't out there for long because I got a first ball duck. Um, so yeah, that was interesting in itself. But yeah, no, the whole experience was awesome, and I guess you got to get it under your belt to sort of, yeah, get rid of all those nerves and all that stuff.
Yeah, I wanted to actually. I mean, you brought it up yourself in terms of the duck you got on debut, and it's interesting because you said that you had self doubt. So I can only imagine if you have self doubt and you score a duck, like, did that affect your confidence at the time or after the game? I mean, you seem to talk about it in a somewhat pleasant manner in the sense of the experience itself, but I'm sure you obviously would have worked hard to get to that point, and then suddenly you're in that situation, you have a self doubt, and then you go for a duck. Like, did that kind of put a dent to your confidence? Like, how did you take in that particular situation? How did you feel like, and what advice would you give for players when it comes to bouncing back from that situation as well?
Yeah, because I guess obviously now, like, I've played more first class cricket, and you look back and you think that opportunity is sort of your be all and end all, but you're obviously I'm obviously lucky enough to get more opportunities, and um, not everything's just on that one innings. So, but yeah, in the moment, it felt like the end of the world. And yeah, it made me question, like, whether I was actually good enough to be at that level, because I wasn't out there long enough to test myself. Um, but I had, I guess, my next first class game wasn't till 12 months after, so Um, I had a lot of time to, I guess, work on things and try and put myself in the best position to, um, you know, be good enough to be at that level. But yeah, there was definitely times where, you doubt yourself. And I think, yeah, there's two ways of going about it. You either sort of go away from that and um, maybe stop working as hard and But or you can, work harder or see it as a way of getting better and learning from it, so that the next time you're in that situation, you can, you know what to expect, and you can be better.
No, there's definitely great insights as well. And when it comes to, because cricket is always fickle like that, like, what would you say, even just that dismissal? I know you said, 12 months later, you had to wait for that next opportunity. I'm just curious, like, what did you make of that situation when you did get out? Like, aside from the fact that you mentioned, like, the self doubt, but like when you analyze that dismissal itself, like, do you feel like that was just, a good ball, or did you just kind of brush it like in that manner, or brush it to the side in that manner? It's like, it happens, you get over it, or you're just like, oh no, like maybe I wasn't switched on first ball. I'll just keep that in mind. And then maybe you worked on something over the next 12 months to make sure like you're in the best mental state or best preparation to make sure you maximize your next opportunity that you play for your state.
Yeah, yeah. I guess, like, it was a pretty good ball to cop first up. But yeah, there was obviously some other elements that could have, affected it. Like, I think, if I was to get that same ball now, like, I'd probably either defend it or I'd leave it. Just in terms of, my footwork patterns that I've worked on technically, and um, just having more experience at first class cricket, and um, yeah, I probably maybe wasn't watching the ball as close as I could have. Maybe I was, a bit overwhelmed by the occasion. So yeah, definitely some things that I've worked on, and have been able to put in place to be able to, you're always gonna get good balls in first class cricket, and it's up to you to be able to deal with them, I guess.
I mean, speaking on first class cricket, I think there's a lot of conversation nowadays with the pitches. In Sheffield Shield cricket. I mean, the final is happening now as well, and there's always a lot of conversation because I think ex players or pundits talk about oh look, I don't know, 5 or to 10 years ago the batting averages were so much higher. Now it's like a bit lower, and then people either diagnose that situation saying, okay, it's because of the pitches, or it could just be, I don't know, the level of batsmen and T20 cricket and not working enough on their defense or whatever it is. So, what do you kind of make of as a player currently in the first class domestic setup? Because I think it's easier said than done. I think obviously when you're just making commentary from the sidelines, it's easier to just be like, oh, I don't know, defense isn't up to shape or whatever it is. But I do feel the way the ball moves, the way the pitches are made, it's very tricky, very difficult for cricketers nowadays as well. So I just want to get your thoughts on that, and based on that, like, how do you kind of prepare yourself to make sure they can counter, in the case if it is down to the conditions, like how do you prepare yourself in such tough swinging conditions as well?
Yeah, it's an interesting topic, and I think, you look back at videos of Sheffield Shield cricket, 10 or 15 years ago, and the wickets look very different. Um, but yeah, I guess all I have to, um, my experience is, what the way the wickets are, or what they have been, as of recent times. And, it's definitely, yeah, it's challenging, and there's definitely balls with your name on it. So I think it just, yeah, I guess that's what we're dealing with. And um, I think, you just got to prepare the best way you can in terms of technically have I guess, a defense you can come back to. And sometimes, the bowlers are going to be too good, which is fine. And, you got to know where you're going to score your runs. I guess so. Having clear plans, having a good technique to, defend their best ball, and sort of hurting them when they miss. So um, yeah, and there's definitely other ways of going about it. Like, you see what Sam Harper's doing at the moment, where he's sort of counter attacking, and um, yeah, playing the way he is, which he's having some success doing it. So, which is cool to see. And but yeah, that's probably how I'd describe it.
And I guess in terms of we're talking about Sheffield Shield and season 2024 to 2025, you scored your debut 100 against Victoria. So I wanted to kind of unpack that match as well because you scored 119 not out of 239 balls. So you kind of stranded there by your teammates if they stuck it in. And who knows what you'd have scored that day as well. So what do you feel like? I guess because you're sort of used to the pace of domestic cricket. By that time, you would have played a lot more matches than you did, a few seasons ago. So, what do you feel like as a player you developed or worked on to get to that stage where you scored your debut century in such a convincing manner, especially in a commanding manner, especially in a situation of the game as well?
Yeah, you talking about the game against Victoria?
Yeah, that game, yeah,
Yeah,
against
uh,
Victoria.
yeah, yeah. So yeah, I guess that was only my sort of third Shield game that I've played. So I think that was just sort of a very rewarding and sort of great for my belief that I guess what I was doing at club cricket and second 11 cricket was good enough at the next level. And um, yeah, it was probably more so a mental sort of release in terms of like having a lot of putting a lot of pressure on myself the first few games, and sort of not playing with that freedom where when I play my best cricket. So it was sort of, I was able to get a few runs away in the first innings, and that sort of just helped me relax a little bit mentally. And um, yeah, and it yeah just allowed me to play my sort of natural game in a positive way in that second innings. And maybe the situation probably helped me as well in terms of, I had to play a certain way. And yeah, especially when the tail came in as well, that allowed scoring opportunities for me. Um, but yeah, it was sort of, yeah, just sort of trusting what my game plan was, and trusting my instincts as well.
Yeah, definitely, and those are great insights. In terms of, in that specific game, you were facing the likes of Ferguson, Neon, Peter Siddle, and obviously by now you face many, high level quality pacers. So in that particular game, before the game, how does the pre-match routine or sort of preparation look like when it comes to the way you play against such bowlers? Like, do you already have a plan against each bowler? Like, you want to play Ferguson Neil a certain way, who's a friend of the show as well, or like you're going to play Peter Siddle this way because you're expecting him to sort of bowl in that way, or do you just have those ideas but then kind of mold it depending on how they bowl on the day? Like, how's your sort of plan against each bowler, and how do you prepare before the game accordingly?
Mm. Yeah, I think it was kind of a junction. It was at Junction Oval in Victoria, which yeah, it was a pretty nice batting track. It was pretty flat. Um, I think when I first came out to bat, the ball was pretty old, so um, like it sort of allowed me to, I guess, at Junction compared to batting at the Wacker, your stumps are in a lot more play than most dismissals. So, protecting that straight ball is going to be important. Um, but yeah, it was just again like a innings where I played a lot on just my instincts and just trusting my shots. When there was a half volley, I put it away to the boundary. When they bowled well, I was able to defend or leave. So and when they missed short, I was able to capitalize on that. So um, but yeah, it was kind of a pretty flat wicket, and I was able to negate Fergus nipping him around a little bit. So yeah, no, it was nice, and um, yeah, it was a enjoyable innings for sure.
And speaking of Junction Oval, because I was actually at the game where you were opening the batting with Mitch Marsh in, I
Mm,
think it was like a few months ago actually, and you'd scored 68 off 64 balls. And what really struck me is that you were like just kind of, you weren't like trying to belt every ball, even though you're going at more than a run a ball. But you just had this flow where you're just kind of getting the boundaries away through like, cuts and pulls and drives. And you just kind of, I can't explain it other than like, it just felt like you're flowing. So I don't know if you enjoyed Junction Oval a lot, but just that innings alone, it just kind of felt like, wow, okay, this player really is in the zone. So how did you feel? I'm curious, like how did you feel that day? Was everything just clicking? And how do you just maintain that from game to game? Because I suspect it's not always going to feel, everything is clicking and flowing in a certain way. Sometimes it might be harder to get ball onto bat. And if there are other situations, how do you kind of adjust for times where things don't feel like it's flowing?
mm. Yeah, I think sort of answering your question before as well, I forgot to answer in terms of like sort of goes into this as well about the preparation side of things. I think, it's the same with this one where it's like, you sort of you're thinking about how the bowlers might try and get you out, and if you negate that, and also knowing where, you're going to score as well. Um, so yeah, I actually found that innings, yeah, it was quite, I had one so where I nicked through keeper and first slip, which was quite lucky, but that pitch was, yeah, it was doing quite a bit, the first few overs, and um, you know, I think in one day cricket, why I was doing well was because like I was always looking to score, and um, the balls that sort of were tough to score off. Luckily, I didn't get out. But the balls that, when they slightly missed short or full, I was able to capitalize. And um, yeah, I think that's why, well, yeah, that sort of innings and went the way it did. And yeah, it was nice. Sort of, yeah, I always enjoy batting it. Well, I find I enjoy batting at Junction. It's usually a nice wicket, and it looks like it's nipping around at the moment in the Shield final, but if it's in good conditions, it's yeah, nice outfield and short boundaries, so it's a nice place to bat.
Yeah, I can imagine. And speaking in that game, like Mitch Marsh made appearance and opened the batting with you. So how was that experience like? Because obviously, Australian captain coming in to play with Western Australia. I don't know how many times you get to have that opportunity when he comes and plays for WA. So what's that experience like? And especially, sharing the dressing room with many other cricketers that are experienced. Like Ash Turner and all these other the players. Like, what's been the relationship like since you've kind of joined the WA setup, and who have you kind of benefited from a lot when it comes to aspects of batting or cricket in general? And I suspect as well you'd be facing like WA known for having such a gun pace bowlers like the likes of Lance Morris, like a can bowl like 145 plus 150 clicks. You have Marley Beedman coming up, Jai Richardson played for Australia, and Cameron Green, the likes of him as well. So like, how's that experience like? Mixing with all these players who have the international cricket experience, and who have you feel like you've benefited from the most?
Yeah, yeah, it's amazing to be able to sort of train and play with those guys that are playing at the next level internationally, and you see why they're so good. And but yeah, like playing with guys like Bice, and they're just great characters to have around the change room. They always bring a different energy as well. And having sort of him in your team, you just walk a bit taller, knowing that he's batting as well. So yeah, it's definitely um, great being able to see how they go about their training, how they prepare for games, but then also just seeing them as normal blokes as well. They enjoy the same things everyone else does, and enjoy company with their mates, and enjoy playing cricket. So and in terms of, facing some of the WA and bowlers and, Lance and stuff, it's, if the whacker nets aren't always the most enjoyable nets to bat in, and it can be like you're just trying to survive and not get hit most of the time. So if you walk out of the net and you haven't got many bruises, you've had a good net. So yeah, it can be quite scary at times, but if you can get through nets like that and face those guys, most other bowlers are going to be um, easier to face. So um, yeah, it's a challenge of it, and I guess the beauty of um, first class cricket, really.
And what advice would you give for players that are trying to get accustomed to facing such high pace? And what cues do you use as a batsman yourself when it comes to, facing high pace? So in the case, it could be, making sure you're watching it out of the hand as closely as possible, or trying to watch the seam as closely as possible, and just trying to react and be calm as possible. Like, what sort of cues or maybe quote unquote hacks do you use to try to face up to such pace bowlers at such high speeds?
Yeah, yeah, it's a tough one because I guess in club cricket you don't really get that much. Um, but I think the more you can sort of challenge yourself in terms of in training, um, in terms of, like you can have guys, on the sidearm come closer and make sort of that reaction time shorter. Um, I think if you can get your hand on some of those lighter bowling machine balls and, you know, fling them down at high speeds on the bowling machine, um, and that just sort of, yeah, gets your body to start moving faster, whether it's, your feet and your reaction time, just getting more comfortable at that pace. So I think just being able to challenge yourself in a training setting, um, yeah, it's obviously challenging and uncomfortable, but it makes it easier when you're out there and you're facing someone that bowls quick. Um, so yeah, I'd say from that training aspect, but I've never really done anything technically. Um, you know, I think naturally you probably everything sort of shortens up a little bit. Um, but I often find maybe just you often want to tense up in your technique because you want to try and move fast, but I find, just staying my normal self and relaxing and just trusting that I'll make the right decision in the right amount of time. I think that's one of the things I think about.
And as well, when you're batting out in the middle, maybe specifically in first class cricket as well, there's obviously a lot more time in between deliveries. So, what's your routine normally? In between balls, are you doing something specifically to try to keep you mentally fresh? So, for when the bowler bowls the ball, then you can try to watch it as closely as possible, or like, do you have certain cues or words that you say when the ball is running in to help you to try to pick up the length earlier? Like, what's your routine as a batsman when you're out in the middle that you felt like has brought you the most success as well?
Yeah, yeah. I think it's for me. It's pretty simple routines, and yeah, it's stuff that's or it's still like now, I guess, evolving and finding things that help me stay present and watch the ball the best I can. But yeah, for me, it's pretty simple. Like, I have the same routine walking out to the middle, and um, you know, I sort of have a few things like a little, I guess, checklist that I sort of has just evolved over the years and naturally has sort of been that way. But yeah, just trying to do that the same every time. It's lining up my feet, sort of feeling balanced. Any other things that I need to ensure to face that bowler, whether it's, from over the wicket or around the wicket. Um, and then from there, it's just telling myself to watch the ball, um, and just reacting from there. And then after that, um, it's just sort of, walking away from the wicket and sort of, having a quick reflection or just thinking about trying to adapt to what the bowler's doing or what the wicket's doing. Um, and then, yeah, I guess you get a bit of time to be able to switch off. So, sometimes that's, singing a song or just looking around, seeing what's going on the sidelines or things like that. And then, yeah, making sure that when I sort of walk back onto the wicket, I'm sort of, switching back on, getting back into that same routine about lining myself up and getting balance, and then making sure that I'm watching the ball. And a lot of the times it's, you know, it's,
And speaking,
oh, sorry.
yeah, sorry, go on. Sorry, I didn't realize you were
Yeah,
keeping. Yeah, sorry.
there's a bit of a lag. It's all good. But yeah, a lot of the times it's never, it's sort of doesn't feel the same. And, you have days where that sort of mental chatter is a lot louder. And, you know, so like I feel like it's never always going to be perfect the same time. But I think, yeah, the best you can make yourself present and to be able to watch the ball is obviously the most important thing.
Yeah, apologies cutting in because the video sometimes stops and then I can't. I think you've stopped speaking, so that's why
Yeah.
I speak. So apologies, bear with me there. But it's interesting you mentioned that because what I've also observed, like looking through your scorecards, is that you've obviously batted all over the batting order, right? So like in List A cricket, you're opening the batting. In Sheffield Shield, you're more so middle to lower order. Sometimes in second 11, sometimes you're in top order. So you're batting everywhere as opposed to someone else that just kind of bats in the same position. So I can assume that I'm just curious, like from your end, like does that require a lot of adjustment? Does it maybe even frustrate you or annoy you in the sense that you're having to bat and change your role or situations and bat to a certain situation in different games? Because you can come in at I don't know 3 for nothing, or maybe you're batting at number five and then you're opening at that next game. It seems like pretty stressful situation. So how do you manage that? Does it bother you batting all around the order at times? And yeah, how do you go about it? Like, do you always actively look to, for example, play differently when you're batting at a certain situation, or do you try to maintain the same tempo irrespective of where you bat in the batting order?
Yeah, it can be uh, challenging, opening the batting or, batting in the middle. I think, especially in white ball cricket, I think opening the batting's, the best place to bat um, in terms of, setting the tempo and just batting the way you want to. Um, but yeah, I think that's the challenge, I'm finding with red ball, coming out at different situations. But the challenge for me is trying to, bat with the same tempo, no matter what the situation is. Because if I'm bringing my, best self to the crease, if that's the way I bat, like I need to be able to try and bring that to every, situation, um, which is, the challenge of it. And um, yeah, I think you obviously got to be able to adapt in certain situations, like the last Shield game, second innings, we came out and sort of had to quickly adapt to sort of trying to block out a draw. So obviously being able to adapt in that situation is important. But yeah, I think most times it's trying to stick to how you want to play, sticking to your game plan, and not trying to change too much from that unless you sort of have to adapt to, you know, you might come out in the 70th over and then have the new ball in the 80th. So being able to adapt to sort of those changes, whether you're leaving more balls um, and putting away a few more shots, still trying to stick to sort of, your strengths as well at the same time. So, yeah.
And as well, I might touch on season 2025 to 2026. A lot happened from what I did my research. Like, you're part of the CA's MRF Academy squad with the likes going to, I think it was touring India alongside the likes of Harry Dixon, Zandon Jay, Campbell Kellaway, Angus Lovell, Ollie Peake, etc. So, and on top of that, you're part of the Prime Minister's 11 match where you're facing the likes of England's bowlers like Potts, Tongue, Hull. And on top of that, you're also part of the top end T20 series where a lot of players around the world came to participate. So that must have been an experience as well. So yeah, like how was that experience like that season? What did you learn, for example? What did you pick up on? What sort of stuff did you have to work on in the MRF Academy squad, or even in things you picked up on during maybe the Prime Minister's 11 game? Like what sort of growth did you have? Do you feel being a part of these initiatives and matches as well?
Mm. Yeah, I think, they're just, I guess, more great opportunities to, um, play cricket and challenge yourself against, different opposition and different conditions. And yeah, MRF was awesome. Like we um, go to India and play in their conditions in Chennai and versing we're versing a Ranji Trophy team and guys from that level. And it was a great challenge to sort of be able to adapt and try new things and um, you know problem solve, and train with other professional cricketers that have the same challenges as you do. So and to learn from those guys as well. So, and you get access to different coaches, different ideas. So I think it's just a great opportunity to learn more about my game and try and bring some of those things or add things to my toolbox to be able to bring back to my own cricket in Australia. Um, so yeah, I think the MRF was awesome, and and playing the PM's game was also another great opportunity to play with some guys that are dominating first class cricket, and then also versus some of the England guys as well, and test yourself against some of their bowlers. So yeah, that was a great experience. Just playing different cricketers in that aspect and challenging myself more, and I guess just adding more experiences to the toolbox, kind of.
And when you were in India, like I suspect the conditions were a lot different to what you're used to in Australia, or even the times you played in England. So, what did you exactly work on and add to your toolkit in those conditions? Were you essentially trying to work on, it could be against spin and the way you play, sweep shots? Like, what sort of stuff were you actually working on when it comes to your toolkit?
Yeah, they were quite extreme conditions. And I was lucky I went to India sort of a few months before that with one of the cricket mentoring tours there. So I had some, I guess, experience, but it was just, you know, I think the biggest learnings I took from that was, trusting your defense. That was a big thing. But then also, being able to um, counteract, sort of the spinning conditions that you faced. So having options, whether, you're going to sweep or whether you're going to play really deep in your crease. Um, but yeah, it was a great experience. But yeah, I think it's something I'd love to do more of. But yeah, being able to, sort of sweep is a big thing there as well. And but I think it's just being really clear with how you want to go about it, um, trusting your defense and sort of really committing to that game plan.
And when it comes to as well, speaking on the season 2025 to 2026, I know you've scored many good innings in that season, but there's one, including a century as well, but there's one particular game I'm just curious to get your thoughts on. is where you scored a crucial 75 or 57 against against I think it was Tasmania actually. And what happened was in the first innings, Bo Webster and Tim Ward both scored hundreds, and you were chasing 320. So you being the opener, you got off to a really good start. So what was your sort of thoughts midway through the game? Because I can assume there's when you're chasing a total like above 300, there might be some pressure, right? As especially as an opening batsman to get off to a good start and put your team in the best position possible so they can chase down the target. So like, what's your sort of mentality in those moments? How do you approach it? And yeah, how did you go about scoring 75 or 57 that day?
Yeah, I think yeah, it wasn't too different to how I'd been playing, how I played at Junction and other games before that. Um, like it was the whacker, it was a nice wicket. And it, under lights it skids on nicely. So you don't have to do too much for the ball to go to the boundary. Um, so yeah, it was nice to, sort of if you get through that new ball and yeah, coming back to my strengths of just playing good cricket shots and um, playing the ball on its merit. And I often think at the whacker, you just hit the ball where it needs to go and hit the ball in gaps. And most of the time, it's either a two or a four. So it's a lovely place to bat when you get in. Because yeah, you can even through the middle, you hit a gap and it's four, so you can just play good cricket shots. And I found that I wasn't doing too much to be able to score fast. But yeah, it was nice to sort of put the team in a good position to be able to chase down that total. And um, yeah, me and Aaron Hardy were able to put in a good partnership of over 100, which helped set it up. And then guys like AT were able to come in and, play their natural game. And Will Malachek and Teague Wiley to be able to come in and sort of, steer the innings. And yeah, everyone sort of chipped in and it was a great team performance.
Yeah, it was amazing victory, and Western Australia won by 1 wicket, which is pretty insane. So, like, what was the communication from the dressing room when there was some wickets falling, and I think maybe at some point you would have thought we will get through comfortably, and then wickets kind of fell. So, what sort of what was the message, and how did you approach it towards the back end of the game to guide WA to victory?
Yeah, I think, well, Teague Wiley was obviously the in batter at the time. And so yeah, I think it was always just trying to give him the most amount of strike as we could and let him score the runs. And but yeah, Brody Couch, he obviously, I think he got 20, maybe 15 or 20. He's a very capable batter, and hit a few nice shots. So that definitely helped the cause. But yeah, it was, I guess, mostly just trying to get Teague on strike. And the runs that Couchy got were very beneficial for the total.
I know you've been so generous with your time. I'll ask a few quick questions before we wrap up the show. When it comes to like training outside, not just from a nets perspective, nets training, but also psychological tools. It could be like visualization. Is there anything that you use? It could even be journaling or meditation or anything that you do to try to help your game out in the middle.
Yeah, I think since coming into the WA setup, I've definitely used the sports psych to be able to just help with me and really try and um, create, I guess, almost like a system that I can follow more consistently to help me become more consistent. But yeah, I guess over the years, meditation and visualization definitely helps. Um, so yeah, I definitely do some forms of that still. Um, Not in too of a structured way, but yeah, definitely find the benefits of that. But yeah, I think over the years, the biggest things for me has just been, you know, being able to like handle my thoughts out in the middle, and having that consistent blueprint of, you know, how I want to, try and score 100. And the more consistent I can create that blueprint, the more consistent I'm going to be in terms of my preparation, my routines out in the middle, and then, yeah, how I want to go about it as well, when I'm batting. So I think, yes, sort of, yeah, all those things definitely have their place. And I think, it's different for everyone. And I think it's exploring those different things to be able to find what works for you, I think.
And when it comes to, you mentioned something interesting about handling thoughts. I think that's always many players, like the biggest downfall is themselves, in the sense that it's not because of the quality or how good they are. It's more so like them doubting themselves or not being able to control their thoughts, and therefore sort of brings their downfall, or they get dismissed before they know it. And so sometimes it can be tricky, right? As a batsman, you might naturally have a self doubt that you might not be able to take on a certain bowler, and then that might inhibit you. So, how do you kind of manage moments of self doubt out in the middle, even though maybe you might feel at a certain point in time you need to be taking on the bowler, for example, targeting this particular bowler? Do you find that maybe it comes naturally to you, where like it's like, okay, I'm just going to target this bowler, and you just do it, and it comes off? Or maybe sometimes you feel less confident to do so, depending on variables like, I don't know, the game situation or just nerves or whatever it may be, and so you don't sort of target that ball because of how you feel, as opposed to maybe what the situation might ask of you. So how do you kind of, I don't know if the question made sense, but how do you make
Mm.
that balance between how you feel and your confidence, or your self-doubt and your thoughts, versus how I'm going to try to do the best course of action for the situation at hand?
Yeah, it's tough. And, every batter is going to have, thoughts in their head. And, some days for me, it's they're louder than other days. And I think it just comes back to, if you have that consistent routine, and things that you can do to be able to bring you back to that present moment. And also probably noticing that those thoughts are normal and they're going to come. But if you can sort of, position yourself that they're like external from you, they're not actually, you don't actually have to believe in those thoughts. Um, I think that's a big thing in itself, just recognizing them. But then also just, coming back to your routines, um, and trying to trust what you've trained. Um, yeah, because if you've trained it, you can have more trust in it and have that more confidence. So that's obviously a big thing. Um, and then, yeah, I guess recognizing them and then coming back to sort of your routine, the best you can. And um, yeah, I think that's the best way, you can go about it. And there's obviously things you can put in place. Maybe there's certain cues to help you try and get out of those train of thoughts. But yeah, I think it's just, I guess, finding what works for you in terms of that.
And I want to ask one or two questions before we wrap up the show. In terms of who's been the most challenging bowler you face, it could be in the nets or in the game, and what is it about them that you found most challenging as well?
Um, I think most first class bowlers are pretty challenging. But I'd probably say, um, Lance Morris is probably the hardest just because of his pace. Yeah, I would say he's probably, yeah, would be the most challenging, I would say.
And in terms of batsmen, who's been the batsman that's impressed you the most? It could be even just a teammate in the nets, or could be in the game that you've seen up close.
Um, yeah, I would have to say probably, Sam Harper, he scored 200s against us, um, in the one of the recent Shield games, which was amazing. Um, you know, Jake Lehman, he's obviously has a interesting way of going about it, but his game plan, and I've enjoyed watching him go about it out in the middle. And Pete Hanscom as well. I've loved watching him, like him against spin. He's very good at playing spin, so he's very enjoyable to watch as well.
And in terms of your most satisfying innings, what innings are you most proud of?
Yeah, I'd probably say the 100 I got against Victoria in that Shield game. Um, I guess just being sort of the first runs I'd ever sort of got in Shield cricket and professional cricket. So and to get 100, yeah, that would probably be my most proud.
And last question would be, what's the best piece of advice you've received that's really helped your game the most?
Geez, it's a tough one. Um, yeah, you've put me on the spot there, but best piece of advice. Um, yeah, my mind's gone blank. Yeah, actually, I
That's all
can't,
right. Take your time. No,
I
it's
can't think of anything at the moment.
last but not least of the question.
Yeah, I can't think of anything at the top of my head, but I think probably the cliche one is, probably just, trusting your game. It's probably very simple, but yeah, that's probably the only thing I can think of.
I guess it's easier said than done, essentially, because you know it takes a lot of practice and hard work to get to that point where you feel that confidence, and then in order to trust your game. But I mean, yeah, that's easier said than done. But I mean, for yourself, you're obviously first class cricketer, play for your state, so yeah, people hopefully feel inspired by your story, because I think what's also fascinating is probably something I didn't ask you as well, because like people talk about going through the age group cricket system and having making a name for themselves, and then playing for their state accordingly, but you didn't necessarily come from that trajectory. I know you were there and thereabouts, but you weren't necessarily that big name in that age group cricket, you know what I mean? So like I think your story in that sense is very inspiring, coming through and having those challenges, beating all odds in order to play for your state, and being successful and showing so much promise. And obviously people are talking about your abilities with the bat and as a keeper as well. So I don't know if you had any sort of final thoughts you wanted to share on that front before we wrap up the show.
Yeah, yeah, like I had a sort of a different pathway to professional cricket, and yeah, like I didn't make my debut until I was, 24. Um, yeah, never had a contract um, until I was 25. So, yeah, I think there's, going to be a lot of times where, you're going to want to quit and, sort of stop putting in that effort when if that's something you're pursuing. And I think, you know, I would regret a lot if I did sort of stop putting in that effort. And I'm certainly glad that I did keep putting in, you know, the amount of work that I did, because it's very rewarding. And yeah, I think just sort of don't stop working and learning and getting better, because you don't want to regret something that you don't want to regret something when you're older. That's what I would say.
Yeah, definitely inspirational words. And I mean, this is my last question, because because a lot of people that were like maybe young prodigies maybe got their contract early on, so therefore they didn't necessarily have to work and juggle work with training or playing grade cricket, whatever it may be. So how did you kind of manage it? Like, were you working a different job at the same time as you were trying to train as much as possible to hopefully play for your state? Like, how did that work from ages like 19 onwards till 25, where you said I think you got your first contract when you were around maybe 23, 24?
Yeah, it's very tough, and it's a grind for sure. Like, like you're working long hours during the day, and you're training outside of that, and yeah, it can be quite a big grind, and challenging at times. But yeah, I think if the goal is big enough, and you really want it, like you do those extra things, and whether it's getting up early before work, or you know after work. So yeah, I think it was just being really good with my time management. And I did different jobs as well. Like, did my electrical apprenticeship, some of that. Then I sort of went into personal training, which something I was passionate about, but also gave me a bit more flexibility to be able to train at different times, be able to rest more, things like that. So yeah, there's definitely different options there. But yeah, you've just got to embrace that grind, and yeah, I guess enjoy it.
Yeah, it was amazing insights, very inspirational, and I appreciate your time coming on the show, sharing all your insights and your journey about your game, how you developed, and playing for Western Australia and your experiences along the way. And we'll wrap it up there. So for our listeners, thank you for giving us your attention. If you want to check us out, we're on YouTube, we're on Spotify, we're on Apple iTunes as well. So feel free to check us out, and we're on Instagram and TikTok. So share our content and share our videos. So, for our special guest, Joel Curtis, we wish you all the best. This is Tanzim signing off. Thank you very much.